Have you ever wondered why the world works the way it does? Welcome to a journey of endless discovery. This is Explanium.
Agriculture supports the livelihoods of nearly half of India's population, but as natural resources deplete and weather patterns grow increasingly severe, a massive question is looming. Can sustainable agriculture secure India's food future? For decades, the entire strategy was simply to produce more food at all costs, but agricultural experts now agree that maximizing output is no longer a viable long-term solution. The first immediate threat is the climate itself. Rising temperatures are triggering erratic rainfall, devastating floods, and prolonged heat waves that destroy crop yields. This visualization shows the scale of the water crisis. Right now, farming consumes nearly 80% of all freshwater resources in India, a consumption rate that is rapidly draining underground aquifers. On top of that, years of excessive chemical fertilizers and pesticides have severely degraded soil fertility. Combined with the practice of monocropping, this chemical-heavy approach is wiping out essential ecosystems and pollinator populations. When you combine failing soil, depleted water, and extreme weather, the system reaches a breaking point. To maintain long-term food and nutrition security, the farming industry has to pivot to a climate-resilient model. That model is sustainable agriculture, an approach designed to meet our present food needs without destroying the land future generations will rely on to feed themselves. This approach rests on three pillars. First, environmental health, using crop rotation, organic farming, and water conservation. Second, economic viability, lowering chemical dependence to absorb market shocks. Finally, social equity, guaranteeing safe food, strong local networks, and fair incomes for the physical work. To push this forward, the Indian government has launched a massive top-down policy effort. Programs like the National Mission for Sustainable Agriculture promote efficient resource management. The PKVY scheme supports organic farming clusters, and the National Mission on Natural Farming encourages chemical-free inputs. They've also rolled out micro-irrigation campaigns to get more crop per drop, introduced soil health cards to give farmers precise nutrient recommendations, and launched the PM-KUSUM scheme to fund clean energy options like solar-powered irrigation. Together, these 6 national schemes create a highly detailed policy blueprint. But drawing up a plan in the capital is very different from getting millions of individual farmers to change how they work the soil. Out in the fields, the transition faces serious friction. The most immediate hurdle is that sustainable techniques usually require significantly more manual labor, which drives up daily operating costs for the farmer. This scale illustrates a massive subsidy bias. Because the government heavily subsidizes chemical fertilizers, buying those chemicals remains much cheaper than investing in sustainable, organic alternatives. Even if a farmer does switch, the market rarely rewards them for it. There are virtually no financial incentives for rebuilding biodiversity or sequestering carbon, and small-scale farmers lack access to the global carbon credit markets that could pay them for those benefits. There is also a persistent digital divide. Advanced technologies and predictive farming tools exist, but they remain completely inaccessible to rural, marginal farmers. Finally, there is the problem of physical infrastructure. Because the supply chain lacks sufficient cold chains and specialized facilities, massive amounts of harvested crops simply rot before they ever reach a buyer. Directives from the capital cannot force a nationwide transition if the basic economic incentives and physical storage networks are actively working against the farmers. To actually fix the system, the underlying architecture has to change. First, the government must shift its financial subsidies away from chemical inputs and instead pay farmers directly for positive environmental outcomes. Second, expanding farmer-producer organizations would allow small-scale growers to pool their resources and access better financing. Third, putting AI and digital tools directly into their hands would provide real-time weather forecasting and critical crop advisories. Fourth, the industry needs to build dedicated supply chains that specifically link organic produce to willing buyers. And fifth, there must be massive investment in distributing indigenous, drought-resistant seeds. This chart highlights perhaps the most crucial step, bridging the transition gap. When a farmer switches away from chemicals, their crop yields often drop temporarily. They need direct financial support to survive that initial dip before the soil recovers and long-term growth begins. Making this transition work goes far beyond agriculture. Building a sustainable farming network is the only way to protect the environment, ensure rural prosperity, and secure the nation's food supply against escalating climate risks. The core challenge for India is no longer figuring out how to squeeze more food out of the dirt. The challenge is figuring out how to produce food sustainably so the land can keep feeding the country tomorrow.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe to Explanium today and discover a whole new world of knowledge and understanding.